It's so overrated. It's just a big piece of trash. Just look at this guy, a big ugly guy. It's based on, by the way, the worst Marvel superhero in the entire Marvel frame, the entire actually like universe of superheroes in the entire history of the planet. Star-Lord, who is a simp douchebag, has no superpowers, is the lamest, dumb, and it's appropriate because this is the stupidest card in the game and it's based on the stupidest Marvel superhero ever. What's going on, everybody? This is Fry. So today, due to very much demand from you guys watching on Twitch and YouTube, I'm finally going to be doing some tier lists for PvZ heroes. So the way I decided I'm going to start off doing this is going to be by taking one class of cards at a time. Today, as you can see over here, I am going to be doing the Guardian class. I'm going to be just going in order of the collection, starting with the 1-cost cards, going all the way through the 9-cost card that you have in this one. And I'm going to be explaining a little bit of what the uses are. I'm also going to be putting them onto our tier list that you see we have over here. And just giving you sort of an idea of how good each card is, and you'll sort of have an idea also of what cards to craft for each class. So if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you let me know in the comment section below which class you would like to see me do next. I might also do one of these for like each hero, maybe all the plant heroes and the zombie heroes. But I think that this is actually going to be the most informative way of doing it, is actually just going one class at a time. And we're going to be starting off with Forget-Me-Nuts. This is a really good event card. 1 cost. This is sort of has become auto-include in a lot of Guardian heroes. This is a very good way of slowing down trick decks like Trickster decks. It is a little bit weak because, again, it only has that 1 health. So sometimes if you slow down trick decks a little bit at the beginning and you don't have a way to back it up, it becomes bad. But you just don't want to make sure you don't play this on the ground. It'll get killed by environments, and usually you just want to play this on heights. Because this is extremely good and has a lot of uses, I'm going to stick this right in A tier. And we are going to move right along. We have the Galactic Cactus. This is an amazing control card, first of all, because this is a 1/2/2, which will basically counter anything the zombies play on turn 1. Plus, it splashes and does 1 damage to everything. So you can really even take out a lot of 2 and 3 drops with it. So it makes it a really irreplaceable control card in any control zombie deck. You want to control plant deck, I mean, with the Guardian class. You want to also, do you want to just make sure this is not going to be a liability and splashing your own minions? That's the only problem with this card. So, for example, if you actually are running Forget-Me-Nuts in your control deck, I try to avoid running too many of like 4 Forget-Me-Nuts and 4 Galactic Cactus, because again, it will splash and destroy your Forget-Me-Nuts, but sometimes it's still worth it, and you just have to make sure that you're not going to be, the Galactic Cactus is not going to be a liability. Same thing as a use, it's also very useful in aggro decks, because this does 2 damage bullseye, and when it dies, it does that 1 extra damage to face. 1 bullseye to face really ends up making a difference, particularly for a 1-cost card. So this thing has a ton of uses. It's really one of the better cards in this game. I'm kind of like debating if I should even put this in S tier or an A tier. It's so close. A plus. We're gonna give it A plus tier. I'm gonna reserve S tier for the big guys. But again, a super solid card, and we'll move right along to Garlic. The chat's voting for S tier. Easy S tier. Fine, I'll put it in S, you guys. We have, gosh, I have the chat on the screen for this. I don't think there's room on the screen for the chat. I'll just leave it out of it. That was for Twitch. All right, next, Garlic. Forget about its ability of killing a vampire, that anything it damages destroys it, because I think in the many years that Garlic has been out, I've only seen that happen a couple times.
Walnut.
Thank you so much, Creplock, for the 11-month sub. All right, Garlic. Garlic, even though this ability is useless, a 1-cost 1/5 team up is actually a pretty decent card. It can be used as an early game control. Now, its ability makes it, things slide off of its lane. So unless you're controlling a 1-attack guy, a 1-health guy with this, it's not that good at controlling. It really is very good at controlling the heights lane, because then the guy won't slide over. So if they play, let's say, their cheese cutter or some powerful 1-drop in the heights lane, the Garlic will actually control it very well and still survive in the field. Since you have Spikeweed Sector in this class, which we'll get to soon, usually they're little weak guys with 2 health. They're going to anyway end up want to play on the Heights line to play on Spikeweed Sector, which makes this a lot better. This is also a very useful card to combine with Pecanolith, since again it only has 1 sun. It only costs 1 sun and has 5 health, so it's going to be doing a lot of damage if you have Pecanolith on the field, which I'll get to later, which basically makes everything attack with its health, because it is a very useful card, but I'm not going to say is sort of top tier. It only is sort of good in Pecanolith decks that you're going to be including it, or in different situations. I am going to be putting Garlic in solid B tier, though. But B means it's a solid card. Don't get me wrong, if it just puts something in B, it's not an A tier, don't even use it. It is very good in a lot of decks. We're going to move on to Great Responsibility. This can be used as a tempo card every once in a while. If you have a guy with a lot of health, this will add a ton of health to it. On the highest level of the game, that's not actually a very good strategy, though. Adding a whole card just to add health, investing into a single minion. Usually your big guys that they're having a hard time removing, they are going to be... They're going to be using hard removal cards like Rocket Science or Deadly Minions or something, and Great Responsibility really does not protect your cards against hard removal. So it makes it pretty unusable in most decks. Now, the one deck that Great Responsibility is very good with is a deck that has both Health Nut, which attacks using its health, and Pecanolith, which makes everything attack with itself. And combined with those cards, it's actually extremely good, because you can really just one turn kill them, especially Grass Knuckles. You just use a bunch of, like, if you have 2 of these in your hand, or even 1, and you just use Time to Shine or some way of doing a bonus attack, you're just going to be doing a ton of damage. So again, it is a very good in some decks, but it is extremely good in some decks, but it is very situational. So I'm going to be putting it, it's very similar to Garlic in that sense. I'm going to be sticking that in the B class. Here we go. Photosynthesizer, sort of a similar card to Great Responsibility. This only adds 2 health, but it does conjure you a random card in Galactic Garden. So again, random Galactic Garden cards, it's fine. There's a lot of uses. A lot of times you're going to get something useless, so it's not such a reliable card draw. The card draw also triggers Dino Roars, which makes it very good with any cards like Triceratops, which will grow every single time you Dino Roar, etc. So again, it is this card that's going to be very good in some decks and like just okay in other decks. So I'm going to be like the other cards, going to be sticking this in B tier. Here is Potato Mine. Potato Mine is almost a completely unusable card. It's not good at controlling the opponent. Really, just imagine you have a 1-cost card that just has 2 attack. It basically has the same controlling effect as that. It does have the team up, but that really doesn't add that much. Also, Potato Mine is not a reliable way of controlling, because instead of like doing 2 damage to the opponent like a lot of cheap control cards like in this game, like Banana Bomb, it gives your opponent an opportunity to react to this card in the trick stage, maybe moving it to a different lane or adding a little bit extra health or protecting one of the minion this is supposed to damage otherwise. So basically, it is okay at controlling if you're a super budget player. It's pretty much useless though. I'm gonna put this in D tier. Pretty bad. Primal Potato Mine, same problem. This is a little bit, it does answer like Headstone Carver and Con Man, but there are a lot of better ways of answering those cards other than Primal Potato Mine. I might be underrating this card, but I'm still sticking in D tier. It's basically useless. Which brings us right up to Small Nut. F tier. No explanation needed. Moving right along. Just a useless piece of garbage. That's all I have to say. All right, keep it going. Sting Bean. Sting Bean is the only way I actually use this is in a Grass Knuckles aggro deck where it does 1 damage bullseye. It's in the water, so it's sort of a little bit difficult, and that little 1 damage will stack up over time. It also is a pea and a bean, and those tribes add a little bit of value. For example, if you're running Grass Knuckles and you have you have the Mega Grow class together, you can actually stick a Gatling Pea on turn 5 on top of this. You can find the aggro Grass Knuckles like Bullseye deck. You can find that on the Fry 'em Up channel. So it sort of has uses, but it's even in that deck, it's really not that good of a card. Since it is playable though in aggro, just not that good, I'm going to stick it in the C tier. Now, moving right along to Walnut. Walnut is basically a worse version of Garlic. Yeah, again, it slightly has one more health, so maybe it's slightly better exactly combined with the Mechanolith card, but it doesn't have that one attack, which means it really cannot fend for itself. If they put, let's say, a Cheese Cutter on turn 1 on Heights that has a 2/2/2, this will just eventually die to it. It's not going to give you that tempo. Again, it's okay. It has some uses, but I'm going to be sticking it since it's an overall pretty bad card, but viable to run in a deck. I'll put in the C tier. Again, it has the advantage over Garlic of being a nut, so it does combine, let's say, with cards like Mirror Nut, which has nut synergy, or what's it called? I hardly ever use this, Macadamia, so I don't remember its name. So it has that advantage, but again, Mirror Nut and Macadamia are not very good cards. I'm going to be getting into them in a second, so I'm going to put that in C tier. Next, moving right along, we're going to Cactus. So this is, again, it's a bullseye card. You can be using as aggro. It has a ton of health for a 2-drop, but it's super outclassed by a lot of other things that are bullseye in the 2 slot, namely Juggernaut. And particularly Triceratops is just always going to be better than this. It doesn't have as much starting health, but it will gain more attack and more health. So it really makes this almost a completely useless card. I used to run this with Walnut because it is a flower. They upgraded it because now, look, it's a flower, it has it on its head. Used to use this like together with Briar Rose. Horrible combo. Basically, it's an almost unusable card, and for that reason I'm actually going to stick this in the D tier. Next, moving right along, we're going to go to Corn Dog. So Corn Dog, this has some uses. This really does, because you can use it, let's say, in aggro Walnut to have an amphibious minion, does a 3/2. Now, if it didn't have the hunt ability, this would be a much better card. A 2/3/2 amphibious would actually be a very strong, aggressive, amphibious card for the Guardian class. The hunt actually makes it worse. This isn't a very good control card because, again, just having, there's a lot of things that can do 3 damage on turn 2, which are much more reliable. If playing Corn Dog to control gives your opponent the opportunity to Bungee Plumber this or answer it in some other way, make sure you don't really get the value from it. So since this is a overall bad card, but it's kind of good in aggro Walnut, I'm going to give it a C. I might be underrating this, but I really have not found a strong competitive use. And that moves us right along to Gardening Gloves. This card just does not do enough for its cost. I think if this was a 1-cost card, this would be fine. And it would actually give the plants a little bit of card cycle, because it does, again, it only costs 1 card and draws a card, help you cycle through your deck. For 2 Sun, it is just not worth it. It just does not do enough. There's some weird combos you can do with Gardening Gloves. Every once in a while, you'll see this shine and it'll like open up a lane. But there's so many better ways in this game to open up a lane than using Gardening Gloves. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to put this in F tier. Complete garbage. Did I skip Banana Peel? Where the heck? Oh no, Banana Peel's a Meguro card. Never mind. All right, moving right along. We have Grave Buster. Okay, so this is a really strong card and also a really weak card. If you're facing a zombie deck like Valtrickster Hybrid or any other deck that just does not have gravestones in it, this is a dead card in your hand. This is literally the worst card in the game. Now, if you're running, if you're going up against a zombie hero that is running gravestones and has Pogo mixed up Gravedigger, so now this is one of the best cards in the game. Think about it, it's a 2-cost card that answers a 4 or a 5 or a 6. Usually opponents aren't going to be running too many gravestones in the 6th slot because of how powerful they can be answered by, how efficiently they can be answered by Gravebusters. So it's a risky card, but it's usually going to include, if you have any room in any of your decks, you want to run a couple of Gravebusters. I think this is a usable enough card that I'm going to actually stick this in A tier together with Forget-Me-Nuts, because again, it's really, if you have any room in your deck, you're going to include one of those. All right, moving right along. Hot Date is going to be a really hard card for me to rank. It happens to be, someone told me that when Hot Date came out, it actually was the #1 win percentage